No Lamar Jackson in practice on Monday, I should say. What's going to happen? I'm thinking it's time for Ravens fans to panic.
I'm Padre Ismail, Super Bowl champion. I am a fan of the Ravens. I am panicking. Hopefully, Lamar Jackson will be out there on Wednesday.
And I'm Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And the Ravens didn't make any trades during the bye week, but there are certainly a lot of rumblings going on right now for what moves the Ravens could make as the deadline approaches. We talk about that and so much more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Ravens Squad Show. This is Sam Njoku, longtime NFL writer and host of the Ravens Talk podcast. It is going to be a crazy week because lots of things going on concerning the Ravens. Week 7 is almost in the books. Last of the games are being performed live right now on Monday Night Football, but that doesn't mean we can't talk a little bit of Ravens in the meantime. The Ravens held practice on Monday. Lots of players returning. Roquan Smith is back. Chidobe Awuzie back. Lamar Jackson not back. So we'll talk about what that could mean for this team moving forward. We'll talk about other changes that could be on the horizon for this football team and changes that we expected to be on the horizon but didn't quite matriculate in the form of trade for the Baltimore Ravens. Crazy time here. Want to let you know today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Kevin, I'll start with you. It is crazy times in Baltimore. The Ravens thought coming into this game against the Bears would have Lamar Jackson. That hasn't been thrown out of the woods yet. No confirmation about whether or not he'll play, but certainly something for Ravens fans to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm not, it's not great that he wasn't practicing, obviously. I'm going to wait until Wednesday, personally, to get into, oh, man, this is a real thing that maybe he's not going to play. Obviously, that's the practice leading up to the game on Sunday against Chicago. Coming out of the bye week, the Ravens, they held the practice today just to probably get into the swing of things. And, once the official injury reports start coming out and we see that DMP next to Lamar Jackson with the hamstring, I think that's where the panic will set in for me. I'm still holding out hope that Lamar can play in this game in week 8 because I know, Sam, you and I talked about this for Friday's episode. You and I even talked about it last week for the show that we did together. I mean, this game in week 8 against Chicago is going to tell us a lot about where this Ravens season is headed, because if they fall to 1-6, I mean, we've talked about it every week, man, this is such a tough spot to be in, well, if they lose this game, I think that's probably it. You can say that's all, folks, for this season for the Ravens, because there's still that sliver of hope right now. However tiny it is, there's still a shot they can make a comeback. But the number one way they can do that is if Lamar Jackson is out there, and they've made it clear, the organization, John Harbaugh, that they are essentially saying, Lamar Jackson, please save us again. And if Lamar's not out there healthy, well, there's nothing that Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley can do for you at this point. We've seen that. So they need Lamar to play, but you also need to be smart about this if you're the Ravens and if you're Lamar Jackson. If Lamar's not ready to play, don't play him. Don't risk injury here. It is not worth it. Even if there is that sliver of hope, I don't want to see Lamar Jackson go out there at like 75% and risk re-injury or risk making something worse. At that point, just shut it down. And I'm not saying like for the season or anything, but I'm saying for the week. I know there's been conversations about what the Ravens need to do this year. Should they even bring Lamar back? Should Lamar want to come back? Lamar Jackson will play if he's available and healthy. That's just that's the situation that's going to happen. But on the contrary, again, if he's not ready and he's not able, I don't care how dire your season is, how dire your situation is, do not have him play. Or if you're Lamar, don't go out there and play if you're not as close to 100% as you can be, which I know, Q, we've talked about at this point. No one's 100% right now as the season progresses.
Yeah, I think it's the what percentage closest to 100% that Lamar Jackson can be effective. If we have been watching the rest of the league that has had its quarterbacks pretty much in a scenario where they've been out for a significant period of times because of major injuries, their backups had to fill in, a la the 49ers. You even saw where, Washington Commanders, they had Mariota play for Jaden Daniels. It looks like Jaden Daniels is going to be out again with his hamstring and trying to figure out what's going on. The point is that when you have a backup, you are looking for him to, just get above 500 until help arrives, which is the starter coming back. Without that element there, Cooper Rush playing so awful, we are in the predicament that we're in. I think if it is Lamar Jackson not being back and we have to look at Tyler Huntley or Cooper Rush, again, more than likely it's probably going to be Tyler Huntley. They're going to have to, bite the bullet and recognize that EDC made as far as bringing in Cooper Rush. Anyway, with all that being said, I think the Tyler Huntley scenario needs to come out with a victory. If Lamar Jackson and all this right now, we're just talking. If in fact he doesn't suit up for Wednesday, then it more than likely looks like he's not going to play, unless he just says, let's skip it. I'm going to be this 40, 30, 20% Lamar Jackson. I'm just going to go out there and do it. So with that said, yes, this is where we're going to see what changes have made, if there are any changes that have been made when it comes to the offensive line. Clearly, from a defensive standpoint, just looking at your defense, the lack of tackle for loss, the lack of pressures, the lack of quarterback hurries, the lack of the S word. Can we just get some S in there? Okay, I want nice, hardcore S. Yes, get your mind out of the gutter. This is football. We're talking about sacks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sacks. Yes, keep it clean in the comments. But that is where I'm saying, you can take over a game if you have a game wrecker, whether it be, good God, TJ Watt or Hutchinson. We're still having nightmares over Aiden. Ed Oliver, even though he's interior, he still, is, according to the Baltimore Sun's report, goodness gracious, the other day, it's like, oh my God, after that loss, well, Ed Oliver must be playing in their minds. The point is you need to have a guy that can be a game wrecker and take over a game. I think Micah Parsons this past week, when you look at what he did for the Packers, taking over their game in the third and fourth quarter, I mean, that's what it's all about. You need to step up if Lamar is not there. When Lamar is there, you definitely need to recognize your play has to be better, because you don't want to continually have him do the impossible, because that's just not winning football when it comes to the playoffs and when you do have a formidable defense that you're going to have to face.
You're 100% right. I can't agree more with that. I don't know. I mean, again, he hasn't practiced today. No injury report was released because it was just an extra practice. Wednesday will be the telling report for the Ravens. If he isn't practicing now, is he really healthy enough to play on Sunday? Roquan Smith was dealing with the same hamstring injury that technically he got injured the same time that Lamar did. Maybe people think that maybe Lamar got injured earlier in the year and this play probably dictated that a little bit. But even though, Roquan was dealing with a hamstring injury, he still practiced today in some shape or form. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Again, probably not good to panic before then, but I'm still panicking now because I don't trust Cooper Rush. I don't trust Tyler Huntley. I don't trust anything that those guys can do on the football field. Obviously, if we have to choose between one or the other, I'm going Tyler Huntley, but I'm still concerned. I'm praying and hoping that Lamar Jackson practices, even if he's limited on Wednesday. Get him out there. Let me see number 8 jersey again. Haven't seen it since the Kansas City Chiefs game. We shall see. If Lamar doesn't practice on Wednesday and we're in full panic mode, what are your chances? And I'll start with you, Q. What do you think the Ravens' chances are in winning in Chicago? Well, against Chicago, as Chicago is playing in Baltimore.
Well, it's interesting because Ashley Shelton, she is making a good point. I mean, if Lamar is healthy enough, he'll play. If he's too competitive, or he is too competitive not to play. I agree with that sentiment. I think that's where the Lions game, he was too competitive to sit out. He had to go out there and give it a go. It was that Texans game the Kansas City Chiefs game where he was just like, man, enough is enough. I can't do it anymore. So yeah, we are seeing the unfortunateness of the Texans game, and obviously we're sitting there wondering, like what's really going to go on against Chicago, because the Rams, the defense showed up, but the offense didn't. And I think in that sample size, if we're looking at Chicago winning 4 games in a row, they weren't beating world beaters, but you also got to say that right now, until the Ravens say otherwise, they're not world beaters either. If I am Ben Johnson, I'm feeling pretty confident about going on the road in an environment where it used to be hostile, and now you have a team trying to figure out its identity, the physical, the hit you in the mouth, the beat you into submission. The tape ain't showing that. So, again, like this is not going to be your normal Chicago Bears type game where you just think, it's the Bears. No, this is a challenge. This is going to be an epic challenge. They are riding a 4-game winning streak. I don't care if it's against the Sisters of the Poor, who donated to the Brothers of the Homeless, who then went and built houses to erect it for the single family person, who then went and helped the aided and abetted all of the other people that needed help. This is where you need to go out there and play your absolute best. Chicago Bears are coming in here with a lot of confidence, and confidence is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, their 4 wins on that win streak have been the Bears. The Bears wins have been the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Commanders, and the Saints. So again, it's not like they're beating the Bills or the Chiefs or the Eagles or Lions or any of those teams. But 4 wins is 4 wins. I mean, these are all NFL teams you're playing. So I think that for me, my confidence level in the Ravens winning without Lamar is pretty low. I mean, it's practically 0, honestly, at this point, because yes, the defense played better in Week 6. We also saw the Rams gift the Ravens some mistakes, but again, every team gifts mistakes at some point or another in a game. So the Ravens, they looked better. Look, based off how that Rams team looked against the Jaguars, I mean, they blew the doors off of Jacksonville. So it made me feel a little better seeing that, honestly. But the offense right now just isn't where it needs to be without Lamar. Lamar comes back, a lot is fixed. But if he's not out there, then I guess I feel a little better if Huntley is starting as opposed to Cooper Rush. I just think that he brings a little more to the table at this point. But, the Bears are a team that, Caleb Williams looks to be settling into a groove. Their running game looks good. And, they're starting to get Colson Loveland involved. DJ Moore has been up and down, but he's still good. Dunze has had a great start or at least a great early start to his year. And that defense has guys on it too that you got to worry about. Montez Sweat, who I've wanted in Baltimore forever, but he's in Chicago now. So I guess I just got to deal with it. Montez Sweat will be coming to town, as well as a couple of other really solid playmakers. So a Chicago team under Ben Johnson, they're not a Super Bowl contender in my opinion, but kind of like you guys have said, this game is not going to be that walk in the park that I think people thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. I mean, it's going to be a lot tougher now, and especially depending on how healthy Lamar is and how healthy some of these other guys are, you're going to have to figure out who you are, because if you don't win this game, you're in a heap of trouble. You already are in a heap of trouble, but you're just piling that on. And I think that, you might be shoveling that last bit of dirt on you if you lose this game in Week 8.
This is exactly why I'm terrified of without having Lamar Jackson in the field. It's going to be a doozy. I'm not confident that the Ravens can get it done without Lamar Jackson. I think a lot of fans, a lot of people outside of the media believe that the Ravens have a good chance of winning if they have Lamar Jackson under center. Without him, this makes it almost an impossible task, I think, because the Bears they're a decent football team, and they showed it last week, and we're going to see their best effort. A team that's getting disrespected currently, they're 6.5-point underdogs against the Ravens, and that's without knowing whether or not Lamar Jackson will play. I think once we decide one way or another, that line will shift a little bit. But 6.5 underdogs after winning 4 straight against a 1-5 football team. I don't know if I've ever seen that ever in the history of watching these type of actions. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about other changes on the horizon besides Lamar Jackson. He needs help. He needs help to get this job done, whether it be on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about what the Ravens will need to do in order to get ready for a big-time matchup and maybe some changes on the horizon without having to trade somebody. Will be very interesting to see. We'll talk about this next here on the Ravens Squad Show. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by thousands, hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. And right now, you can get it 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we are back here with the Raven Squad Show. Sam, KO, Q, talking Ravens football. Remember, we're here twice a week. Today we're here on Monday because there was no game this week. We'll be back on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then after that, following the Ravens-Bears game, post-game edition, you can also catch the Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin Ostreicher Monday through Friday. He also had shows on the weekend this week because there's much to talk about with this Ravens team. Even though they're 1-5, that doesn't mean the Ravens news stops. We're talking Ravens football because, of course, Lamar Jackson did not play or did not practice on Monday, which means at least in my opinion, the Jeopardy is real in terms of whether or not he plays on Sunday. Hopefully he does practice on Wednesday, but he's not the only issue with this football team. Far from it. I thought the Ravens were going to make some sort of move here, make some sort of announcement in regards to this team, most notably the offensive line. And it's very interesting that Jeff Zrebiec of The Athletic and the New York Times had something to say regarding this issue earlier last week. I'll read you a snippet of what he had to say. He had a question from a Stephen J., and he asked, do you get the sense that they will be looking to make any changes along the offensive line during the bye week? I know Harbaugh said everything is on the table, but it also seems that some players such as Falele are Harbaugh guys who, regardless of what we see on a play-by-play basis, won't actually be removed from the lineup. Jeff had this to say. He says, I do get that sense, actually. I know Harbaugh said he was considering O-line changes before week 6 and nothing changed, but it wasn't hard to detect the frustration in his comments after Sunday's game about the goal line sequence, and again, during his comments that passed to Monday. Heading into week 6, I would have probably told you that I would thought Falele was playing better than Angie Voorhees. However, Voorhees was much better against the LA Rams. I'd be moderately surprised if Ben Cleveland and or Corey Bullock weren't given a shot to start after the bye. And we are here after the bye, and there were no trades made to shore up the offensive line that took the field on practice, which means most likely the players you see on the practice field on Monday are the players you're going to see playing on Sunday. Kevin, I'll start with you. We've talked about this offensive line ad nauseum because Daniel Falele, Angie Voorhees have not played well. Most notably, Daniel Falele has received a lot of criticism from Ravens fans alike. Could you see a change on the horizon? Is this the end of the Daniel Falele experiment, or do you think there's more of the same coming after the bye?
This team is so hard to read. I literally, because the answer is right in front of all of us, but it's in front of all of us and seemingly not in front of the organization, which is essentially what matters when it comes to who's coming out there and playing on Sundays. So should it be? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I think Corey Bullock should get a shot. You know, I hesitate to include Ben Cleveland because I just don't think he's ever going to play a meaningful role on this organization. Fair. It's not something with Ben Cleveland. It's, you know, John Harbaugh clearly doesn't like him or has something out for him. He's in the doghouse. I have no idea why they brought him back, but they did. And here we are. So I think Corey Bullock is that guy. I think you should give that opportunity to Corey Bullock. And I agree with what Jeff said, where I think that Andrew Voorhees played a lot better in that week 6 game, I'm willing to give Voorhees another week based off of that performance. But the problem with Falele is you can just tell, like, and because you turn on the all 22, you turn on the tape, you just watch the highlights of the games. You watch the games live and you see, Daniel Falele falling all over himself in the run game, not being able to get out into space. And, it's a problem because, and I get it, it's not all Falele, right? Falele is not the only offensive lineman that's playing bad for the team this year. Roger Rosengarten has regressed. Ronnie Stanley has also regressed and has also been injured for the majority of the last handful of weeks. We've talked about Voorhees. Linderbaum, I think, has had his moments this season, but I think also he's just a product of the play around him, and he's having to make up for so much out there on the field with the inexperience and poor play around him at the guard spots. I mean, imagine if he was playing next to Kevin Zeitler or Marshall Yanda or, a high-level Hall of Fame caliber guard, even just one of them. It would make a world of difference. Maybe Marshall can come out of retirement and, maybe help the Ravens. Although no, his body transformation, I think you'd have to line him up at tight end at this point and play him there because he looks good for, and a lot of offensive linemen go through that transition. But Kevin Zeitler's still playing. Kevin Zeitler's still a big guy. Maybe you can get him in here and have that happen. But, I guess it's a long roundabout way of me saying that it definitely needs to be the end of the Daniel Falele experiment. The Ravens, the thing that I guess worries me is the word I'll use is that they clearly have put so much time, effort, and resources into trying to get Falele to be, this star for them. I don't know if they want to give up on it. Like, I genuinely don't know. It's the right decision to, but are they going to be stubborn here? Are they going to be loyal here? That's the word we use. The Ravens can be loyal, sometimes loyal to a fault. Is that going to be the case with Daniel Falele? I'm not sure, but if it was up to me, Falele would have been benched a long time ago.
Well, he is John Harbaugh's guy. When he has that loyalty stamp of approval, that's good, bad, and ugly. And, John will ride or die with his guy. Now, I thought the one influencer and colleague of ours had a good point in saying that John typically will say the player's name and kind of go to bat for them, whereas in his presser before the bye, he's saying that there's really no guarantees for anybody, and all things are on the table. So is that a scenario where things have changed and now there's going to be some really good competition? I don't think we're going to really, truly know until pregame warm-up, where you're going to have the first, unit go out there and play, like to get whatever plays that they're going to run in pregame warm-up during the team period of pregame warm-up. So in my mind, I'm like, well, all right, like we're going to just sit back and ride this roller coaster. They haven't made any really main trades. And I think part of that is listening to KO's show on Locked on Ravens. Like, shoot, look at all the other teams that need players too. So there's a lot of jockeying for position when it comes to trying to get a guard. Okay, well, there's some other teams that want linemen too. You got to get a rush in. Okay, well, no duh. There's some other teams that feel like they need to get that one piece. If I get that one piece, I get an opportunity to save my job. So why would I give the Ravens? I'm not Cleveland Browns here. I'm not trying to go ahead and say, Bengals, we got you covered. We're going to hook you up with the quarterback that was our opening day starter right when y'all need him against the Steelers. That being said, there are no more Bengals type moves that are out there. And so I think this is where you hope, well, clearly, who's old boy? Emory Jones, thank you. Emory, he ain't walking through that door anytime soon. I can promise you that. John has been on the record now saying that his doctor ain't clearing him to play. It looks like his season is a wash, to be perfectly honest with you. Gosh, I mean, miracles have happened before and all that, but yeah, I mean, that to play with no preseason whatsoever, not even like practice. I mean, you got to be like a stud of all studs. And there's been a lot of football that has been played, and I haven't seen stud of all studs just get out there with no practice and just show up and be like, I'm
Yeah.
going against someone who's amazing, who's played all year, and I'm going to be better than him. No, you're not. So, yeah, Cleveland is so deep in a doghouse that, he's just cleaning up poop, and it's dried up, smelly poop. The kind that is just like the hard turds because you had too much fiber that you gave the dog. Okay? That's how bad Ben Cleveland is. Let's just be real with it. He ain't playing. So we got to worry about Roly Poly Oly and Daniel Falele, and it's going to suck. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's hold on to our seats. Yeah.
So you think there's no shot that Daniel Falele loses his spot to Corey Bullock? It's Daniel Falele from here on out, Q?
I mean, I hope he loses his spot. Don't get it twisted. Ain't like I don't. Yeah, no. We know. we already know what Daniel Falele, oh God, can do. Yes, Laura, I understand. I'm just being real with it though. But like, what else can you say? And that's the bottom line. Like, it's one of these cases where we just hope Bullock can do it. Otherwise, Falele is going to be roly-poly Oly out there.
Yeah, I really hope not, especially if Lamar Jackson is playing. Now, if for whatever reason Cooper Rush is out there, then it really doesn't matter who the offensive line is. We're going to stink anyway. But, if you got Lamar Jackson out there, you can't keep the same 5 guys that were out there the first 4 weeks of the season where he got pummeled against the Bills and pummeled against the Lions, even though I think he was a bit injured in that contest. So, yeah, I just don't see, them doing it. Again, Harbaugh is very stubborn. We all know that. It's the reason why Zach Ertz is still the defensive coordinator. It's the reason why Daniel Falele is still the OG. The Ravens are very, very keen, especially with, John Harbaugh, of, keeping guys longer than they probably should. Kevin, I'll start with you. Well, I won't start with you. I'll lead the question that I gave Q. Is there a way? Give me a percentage. The percentage of Ben Cleveland or Corey Bullock being the right guard for this Ravens team after this Bears game, at this Bears game. Do you think that there's any shot? Give me a percentage of Daniel Falele having played his last game against the Rams.
I mean, I think at this point, I have a better chance to be in the guard than Ben Cleveland. So I'm gonna put that at maybe a negative percentage because I don't think they're gonna play him. I don't think they like him. Just straight up, I just do not think they like Ben Cleveland. But the reason they brought him back was he didn't have any other options, and they thought, okay, we can get him as cheap depth, but we're never going to use him. Like, that's truly what I feel like happened here, because over the first 4 years of his career, they showed barely any interest in actually using him because clearly he's not a practice guy. He's more of a game guy. But John Harbaugh is certainly a practice guy. And when you're not playing in practice the way you're going to be playing in the games, you're not going to be seeing the field during the game. So I don't think that Ben Cleveland is going to play for them. For Falele and Bullock, I will say that they're going to try to give Falele one more shot coming out of the bye week. It's not what I would do, but this is what I think the organization is going to do. I think they're going to give Falele one more shot against the Bears, and if that doesn't work, then they will make the change for Thursday Night Football. But there is a chance because that's a short week. Mm-hmm. So do you want to make a change on the O-line during a short week? I think the perfect time to do it is now. You've had all this time to get acclimated. If you're Corey Bullock, to be inserted into the starting lineup. I mean, that's why we talked about if they were going to fire a coach, the best time to do it was now so that you could have the ability to not have to prep for an opponent. But I just think that the Ravens are loyal here, and that's what I believe. I don't think that they should be in this instance. Loyalty is generally a very good trait to have. It has helped the Ravens a lot over the course of their franchise history, but them being over loyal to certain people has hurt the organization. And I think that this is one of those instances, where clearly they need to make a change. And I think it's not only impacting, the rest of the offensive line, it's impacting the rest of the team. It's impacting Lamar Jackson. And Q, you're your short that I put out of our conversation, people talking about when you were talking about the kryptonite, why put on your Superman cape when you're just facing kryptonite on every single play with these guys where, you're asked to do this if you're Lamar Jackson, you're asked to do that if you're Lamar Jackson. But, the Ravens, in my opinion, should be trying to put the best 5 that they can. We can talk about how the roster was constructed. All 3 of us have talked about how the guard position, they cheaped out on that. They handed those jobs away. It is what it is. But you need to put the best 5 you have on your roster out there for Lamar Jackson's sake. And they're not doing that right now. It's just objectively false that the guys that are playing right now are the Ravens' best 5 guys on the roster. At least try something else. You know what? If it doesn't work, well, then you're right back to where we are right now. So I think that it doesn't hurt to try it. If I had to give a percentage, I'd say it is 65% Falele starts in week 8, 35% that he does not. I think there is a chance he does not. But, just knowing this organization, I have to see it to believe it. And you know what? If they do bench Falele, I'm taking credit and saying it's the Kevin Oestreicher Locked On Ravens squad show reverse jinx. We're reverse jinxing it. And that's what we're going to do. So hopefully they do make that change for the sake of the team and Lamar Jackson. But, I'm just going based off of the precedent they've set, which, I don't know they're going to.
I wonder a few things. One, if they recognize Lamar when it comes to the kryptonite. And what I was saying was that literally the Lions game, it's a 7-sack game. I think part of him not being able to run and be elusive is that he just didn't have it. Part of the Kansas City Chiefs game is that he didn't have it. When you look at defensive coordinators, they're recognizing that he doesn't have it and that his line can't protect him. Another influencer pointed out that when you go back and look at Lamar when he had his signature play from last year's Cincinnati game, it was because why? You have Falele. Oh, go. Oh, oh God. Oh, duck cover. Was not playing up to the caliber he needed to play. And Lamar bailed him out, a la Superman. When the kryptonite is on your own team, that's the problem. That's what we're facing. We're facing a situation where it's the kryptonite that is on your own team. And mother of pearl, are we going to introduce the offense or are we going to introduce the defense? And if you introduce the offense, I'd be curious as to the energy level of when they do announce the offensive line, whether or not if 77 is out there, are they going to, be cheering and be like, oh, or like, okay, we lost. And everybody just start getting up and walking out of the stadium. That'd be crazy. Like, it'd be like, okay, Falele is out there. Well, we're out. Hey, you want to go back out there and tailgate? Yeah, let's go out there and tailgate. We'll watch another show or another game or something. Oh, yeah, I think we should watch the squad show post-game. We'll watch their show. That's about what we'll do. Yeah, Falele, we definitely need to move off of this because this is not that. In other words, you're trying to gain wins and stack wins, and you can't do it when you have weaknesses across the offensive line.
Yeah, can't do it. And I'm 1,000% stealing that kryptonite line. That was fire. I'm just gonna write it down and use it on my podcast in a couple of days. This is really good. I'll give you a shout out for it, but that is very awesome. Yeah, he is definitely the kryptonite for Lamar Jackson, especially if he wants to take this team to new heights. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about another piece that came out today, actually, concerning the Ravens and what a lot of anonymous players think about this team, especially after the 1-5 start. We'll touch on it here next on the Ravens Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make the decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. And the new injury reboot feature. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. There's a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Golden State Warriors versus LA Lakers game on October 21st. Steph Curry is discounted by only needing more than a half point to win. I'm thinking Steph Curry is going to get more than a half point. Mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball to build your dream lineup today. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. With more IIHS top safety pick and awards than anyone else, you can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls with all-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we're back here with the Ravens Squad show. Again, twice a week. We're available now and then again on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Talking Ravens football. Again, the Locked On Ravens podcast is also available to you. KO giving you the action Monday through Friday, even during the weekends, giving you that Ravens news. Again, make sure you like and subscribe if you're following us here live on YouTube. If you're listening wherever you get your podcast, please be sure to give us 5 stars and comment. It'll really help the show out. We're talking Ravens football, and an interesting article came out from The Sun today by Brian Wacker. Shout out to Brian Wacker because he did an excellent job on this piece talking about what's going on in the facility. They interviewed, I believe, 25 players who mostly remained anonymous concerning what this football team has gone through. Very interesting snippets all the way from the Ravens moving equipment, playing games, all those things that the Ravens used to do. They took that away following losses to kind of focus the team's attention, something they've done in the past, but I'm not sure if I really agree with that as you try your best to kind of lighten the mood in certain instances, take your mind away necessarily from the pressure that both the fans and the coaches are putting on you, but that's neither here nor there. One interesting snippet came from an anonymous player who says that the Bills put a beating on us mentally. It felt like everything was ending, even though it was just the first game, which is an insane thing to think of. But again, the Ravens lost to the Bills in the divisional round last season, came around and lost to the Bills again in week 1. Very similar to what happened with the Chiefs when the Ravens lost to them in the AFC Championship, coming back and losing by a toe and against Kansas City again the following year. So this Ravens team has gone through a lot, both mentally and physically. Q, I'll start with you. You've been in these locker rooms before following losses. How much do you think that loss against the Buffalo Bills really took as far as the toll on this team mentally?
Yeah, I kind of almost forgot about the fact that, yes, you had the AFC Championship game. Then you come back the following year and you kind of actually start off slow because Chris Jones was having his way with Roger Rosengarten and Daniel Falele. Oh, gee, did we just talk about that for 30 minutes? Yes, we did.
A little bit.
So with that said, when you look at this year's game and this year's performance, you thought like, okay, cool. Like, how many times, KO, have you said, okay, I'm tired of this whole revenge tour thing because we've been revenging on tour for forever. Yep. Like, I want my tickets back since we on this revenge tour because I've heard the music over and over and over again. And with that said, yes, they go ahead and they lose by a point against Buffalo. Buffalo is kind of coming back down to earth when you're seeing the way they've been able to play lately, not really been able to hold it down. I kind of watched the majority of the Bills and Falcons game, and I was like, goodness. So that's what it looks like when you have a defense that's playing with some swagger and confidence and getting after Josh Allen. Oh, so that's what happens when you can protect your quarterback and he can sling the ball down the football field to his skill position players. Well, that being said, I know in a locker room, taking your toys away, if you will, it's not that that's like a bad thing in a sense, but you better know that it's guys messing up their assignments. You better know that it's a scenario where, like, yeah, we really need to buckle down. We really need to, there's too many mistakes. And why are these mistakes happening? Well, these mistakes are happening because guys just are not focusing in and, look at the toys. So the ping pong table got to go, the video games got to go, whatever. But to me, I think that's not really the big picture. The big picture is who you're going to put in there to make things happen. You know, again, D-line, scheme. If your scheme is too complex, then what do you need to do to make it to where guys can just go out there and play? No, you had a lot of young players, but okay, well, then you need to have some of your studs step up. A little bit of that happened against the Rams, sure, but we need more. And then on the flip side of things, yeah, you do. You need your star players to be star players. And yet at the same time, this goes to show you the foundation of your team starts up front. So the toys in the locker room element of it all, if John's calling guys out or if it is a situation where the message might not be getting through, all right, maybe the toys, but I don't know. I don't think that that's like the big answer to your problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna actually do a show on this tomorrow of deep diving into this article that Brian and the Sun put out because there are so many things in there. But
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that I've been talking about for a while here. I even said it on this morning's show. We can talk all about how this Ravens team needs to improve on the field and everything that they need to do from a pass rush perspective. Everything you said there, Q, like, is 100% correct. But none of that, in my opinion, is going to change, or at least in a significant way, until you figure out what's going on off the field. Right? When you have something like this that comes out and it has these players, talking about the situation, and it's not some happy article like, "Hey, look at us go." I mean, this is a 1-5 football team that clearly has turmoil in their locker room. That clearly there is a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players. Maybe there's even a disconnect between the coaching staff and the coaching staff. I mean, when stuff like this continues to happen, and honestly, over the last calendar year, this team has been involved in a lot of weird situations like we talked about last week. And, some you're just bringing in guys that are known for that. Other times, the organization is not communicating well with the players. I think it's a combination of both for some of them as well. You have to figure out what's going on off the field because these distractions are just becoming too much. That they've had too many for a team that it's so weird to hear the Ravens in these conversations and to have these situations go on with the Ravens, because for years it was like, no, the Ravens aren't that team. The Ravens don't have, the Ravens are tight and buttoned up, and they don't have any of that happen. And then you have all this stuff. And look, winning cures everything, right? If this team was winning football games and there was still disagreements about what was going on, there'd be a lot less people caring about it because they were still winning football games. But, the second the losing starts and the second, you're not forming up to your standard, all of a sudden that pressure really starts to get to you. I mean, we've seen John Harbaugh put on public displays at times of how much he feels this pressure, whether it be him making comments about it not being Super Bowl or bust, or, him getting a little snippy with his answers to the media, and other times as well. There have been articles, not even this one, I'm going to look at that on tomorrow's show and we're talking about it here, but there have been articles earlier in the year from other outlets about, guys skipping out on media availability. Zay Flowers apologized for doing that today. And, Roquan has done it as a veteran leader after every single loss, which in my opinion is unacceptable. It's like all of this is a reflection, like obviously the players, it's not a great look for the players, but this is a reflection of what goes on at the top here. This is a reflection of leadership, whether it be coach or player. I don't know. And I genuinely asked the question, who are the leaders on this team? I know Lamar Jackson is one of them. I know that. We think Roquan is with his, rah-rah doing the stuff on the field, but does a leader walk out of a loss without speaking to the media and leave younger players? There was an article from, it was another Baltimore Sun. It was commentary. I talked about this over the weekend for a bonus episode where, these players are leaving the locker room and leaving rookies to answer questions for them in their place. And shout out to the rookies. John Jenkins has been a veteran that's been very receptive to answering questions. But Teddy Buchanan, essentially after his availability, I think it was after the Houston game, turned to, I can't remember who it was in the article, but essentially said, like, man, why are they talking about me like this or something along those lines. Like, these rookies are being asked to be put in these situations. No, they're not being asked to put in the situations. The veterans are putting them in those situations. So you need to be able to get everything figured out on the field, but you got to start off the field. That to me is where I think the onus lies, because once you figure that out, once you get on the same page, I think you can start playing more freely as a football team, is play together and coach together. It just feels like they're not unified right now. And I'll tell you what, whichever team wins the Super Bowl this season, they are going to be unified. And that's something right now the Ravens need to figure out.
That is a very well said.
It's interesting with piggybacking off of that with regards to the leadership within the locker room. What I saw with the Rams game outside of Zay, that quasi gives me hope. When you look at the Ravens defense, they're just not creating turnovers. And I think that's been the blaring issue. And this Ravens offense has turned the ball over, unfortunately. And so when you look at them creating, was it John Jenkins had the big strip sack fumble on Matthew Stafford. I think that's where, for me, like when I'm like, look at how the energy of the guys, like the entire defense got off the sideline and went and celebrated with him. Like, I'm hoping, if there's like slithers of hope, I'm hoping that is the slither of hope of like, all right, cool. This team, they do have a pulse. They do want to win. They do care. Like, let's go. So that's just a little aside when it comes to the quote unquote leadership, because it was led by Marlon Humphrey, who was like, yo, let's go, let's do this. Him and Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that article, and I won't spend too much more time on it because I know, Kevin, you have a piece on it this tomorrow. But oh man, I just think that this is if you're not on the train of John Harbaugh's lost the locker room, then this was not a good article for you, because this, to me, showed me, one, he is losing these people very quickly. Now, again, we mentioned that winning cures a lot. And we've heard, not just this year, but in previous seasons, with guys like Ed Reed, with guys like Bernard Pollard, people who didn't take too well to what John Harbaugh was putting out there during the week, not just on the football field, but just during the week, the way he had this offense and defense going. So you could kind of tell this is going to happen. Of course, if you lose in football games, you're not going to really, the culture is not going to really be receptive to it. So very interesting. We'll touch maybe a little bit more on it and then get to the main piece from me, at least, is that the Ravens didn't make any moves this week to shore up this defense, especially considering we have 3 pass rushers, 3, and one of them didn't play at all last season. Kind of crazy to think about, but we'll touch on it here next on the Ravens Squad Show. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We are back here with the Ravens Squad Show. Sam and Joku, Kevin Ostrecker, Kadri Ismail. We are here talking Ravens football. Now, want to let you know we've been talking a lot of negativity with this football team, but there's still hope for this team. Maybe there might be a chance for the Ravens to get Lamar Jackson back, perhaps. Maybe a trade is on the horizon for the Ravens between now and Sunday. But as of now, the Ravens didn't make any moves. Now, a lot of teams are still probably holding on to the false sense of hope that they can turn their season around. Guys like the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, perhaps. But you'd think that the Ravens would have made a move, considering they traded away Odafe Owe to the Chargers and have not brought in a pass rusher to return. Currently, they have Mike Green, David Ajabo, and Kyle Van Noy. Those are your only 3 pass rushers. Is that good enough for that matchup against the Bears where Caleb Williams is slinging it? I don't know. Kevin, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts about this? Ravens made no trades whatsoever in this contest. I mean, in this bye week, and now it looks like there won't be a trade at least until after this Bears game.
A little surprised, not necessarily that they didn't make any trades, but that they just didn't add a pass rusher in general. I mean, they have 3 outside linebackers right now, 3 edge guys on their roster. They brought in a couple for workouts on Monday, Carl Lawson and Jesse Luketa, I believe. So those are 2 options. Carl Lawson, high second rounder of the Bengals all those years ago, spent time with the Jets and I believe Cowboys last season. That could be an option, but you need more. Unless you truly believe in Malik Ham and K'Mon Rucker to go out there and give you legit snaps against the Bears on Sunday. I mean, you have no Tavius Robinson, Adafe always now in Los Angeles. And the problem is that Mike Green really hasn't been all that great to start the season. Maybe we just need to start saying Mike Green again to kind of summon the great play for Mike Q. I think we got to call on you again to get that going so we can summon some sacks for Mike Green. I just think that, again, with him and obviously David Ojabo, who really hasn't done much of anything, not just this season, but unfortunately over the course of his career with the Ravens. And then, the big one that everybody's looking at to kind of carry the load right now is Cal Van Noy. You need somebody else in there. They just need to look at the trenches right now, both offensively and defensively. I know Ian Rappaport put out a report. We talked about this, or at least I talked about it on the show on Saturday or Sunday, where Ravens are calling around the league for defensive help. There are teams right now that are going to be in full sell mode. Teams like the Jets and the Saints and the Titans and the Browns, those teams that you could probably find a guy or two, maybe the Giants, although I know even though they suffered that tough loss yesterday, they've looked better with Jackson Dart at the helm. Maybe they don't want to move off of certain players. So I don't know what their situation is, the Ravens right now, in terms of how active they are, but I do know that Eric DeCosta is active. He always is. He's always trying to find ways. We talk about how he wants to get every little advantage he can. Well, that involves being pretty active over the course of 365 days. So deadline's coming up on November 4th. It's quickly approaching, and the Ravens are running out of time to make an addition or two that could maybe help them out, not only this season, but if they can get a guy in for the next couple of years via trade, I think that'd help them out a lot.
Who did they bring in? They brought in former Jets D lineman.
That was Carl Lawson.
Workout, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, you're bringing in people in the building, and it'd be curious to see if they're like up and running and ready to go. But I don't know. I just think this is a scenario where if you can't bring in a stud fast, the guys that you have on your roster is not enough. That's just the bottom line. Just not enough.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. I am wondering, are the Ravens potentially going to become sellers? If for whatever reason Lamar Jackson doesn't play, the Ravens unfortunately fall to the Bears. They're 1-6. Could this shift from a team that's looking to buy to a team that's looking to sell? Q, I'll start with you on that. Do you think they could potentially be sellers if they don't get the win on Sunday? And if so, who could you see being moved across to maybe shore up some draft capital, some more 5th-round picks?
Yeah. Some dudes. Oh boy. You know what? It's interesting because you had earlier in the offseason Mark Andrews, but now I don't really see, if you did get, Mark Andrews loose, then okay, great. But gee whiz, you have a young Isaiah Likely. I'm curious because of the injury and just because of just the production, and I don't think it's necessarily him. I believe what you're saying, key mold as far as shop off Mark Andrews. I think, yeah, you do. You got a Isaiah Likely that's sitting in there waiting to kind of show up and show out. But again, if you're getting rid of players, who else do you have? I think, Bateman, his numbers aren't really that high. If you technically ship out, I got you, Key. But if you technically are in a position where you want to look at Tez Walker as like the future and, get some value, which I hate that word, but if you want to get draft value and all the things, yeah, you could say, maybe there might be a market for, there's who else defensively, but there's really no one else defensively that you could say would be kind of somebody you would get rid of. I mean,
Someone just said I'd sell
there's no one that
I-
Roquan with his contract. You could just like Kevin. You would know this more than I would with your abilities to extrapolate from the salary cap. But I would just say just cut him loose. Like, what's the point? You had your your love affair with him early on, and then Roquan just went. I don't know. Like he went away quick. We haven't really seen the man that the high tide that raises all ships in a long while. I think that ship got a hole in it and started sinking on its own.
Yeah, I for Roquan and Marlon, because I see people are also talking about Marlon in the chat a little bit. They can release both of them during this upcoming offseason and save about $7 to $8 million per player. So anywhere from $14 to $16 million in savings. But I want to raise this question, and I want to get an answer from both of you guys about it. Because you were talking about, which one of these players, is there anybody defensively that they could get rid of? I said this on this morning's show. I think they should trade Jair Alexander. I think that, and I know, Sam, I am betraying everything I have talked about for the last 5 seasons, but they're not using him. They clearly, something's going on there. I think he's still a great player when he's out there on the field. Obviously, the Buffalo game was terrible from him. I'm not going to give him a pass for that. But if they don't plan on using him, and you can move like the Owe trade, right? You traded Owe away. You got someone you felt like could help you this season. I know people are talking about that with Mark Andrews. But if you're not going to use Jair, and it feels like they're not going to, if they're going to use him, keep him. But if you're not, then go get something for him. And I'm talking about an edge guy, or I'm talking about, a D lineman, maybe an O. I would trade Jair for Kevin Zeitler. I would trade Jair for Jalen Phillips and, Jair and a pick for someone. Like I would do that if it meant, because look, Jair's not coming back after this season. The writing's on the wall. It's been a weird year for him. I don't think Jair's coming back. You can, and even if it's to a contender, and again, like the Chargers and Ravens both trying to like turn their seasons around a little bit. Chargers had a fast start. I know it's kind of gone south for them, but if there's a contender, dare I say the Bills that are like, man, we need corner help, or another team. I'm not sure I'd help out the Bills, but I'm just talking about like a contender like that whose defense is bad right now. And they say, man, we need a corner that can help us. Jair could come in and do that. We'll give you back a D lineman or an edge guy to help you out. Then maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I could see that, and maybe they could trade him off to the Raiders, who desperately need corner help. Yeah, and then they would get some D-line help in return, because the Raiders are going nowhere real quick. I would absolutely welcome that. I know some people in the chat were like, oh man, we should definitely look at Max Crosby, but I'm like, bro, that dude, he's so entrenched as Mr. Raider. I don't see him, and plus his cap number is like crazy high. Like they paid him, but he'd be worth it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see Mr. Raider ever leaving. But with that said, yeah, Jair, like get him out of here. Like I'd be like, bro, it's okay. See ya. Love the fact that you wanted to do the little 5 a.m. get up and lift all together, and that jazz. Y'all got up and lifted, and y'all lifted and hurt yourselves. So whatever else you need to do, lift yourself on out of here, brother. Go ahead, and we'll the whole samurai versus seatbelt thing. Well, maybe you should have kept it as a seatbelt or as a samurai sword, because you cut yourself and got yourself injured. I don't know, but whatever it is, we'll see you, brother. Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh, I can't. What you're saying makes sense. Don't get me wrong. I think Jair Alexander, if you're not going to use him, move him, get something for him. He's a guy that at least maybe you could potentially have some value for, since you haven't played him at all this year, really. Oh man, I feel like what that would do for the locker room if somebody like him were to go, and what that would do for Lamar Jackson, somebody who's very much cool with, even though they did get rid of Hollywood Brown now, and Hollywood and Lamar are very tight, and they still got rid of him. So I don't know, man. It just after the propping up we did for this guy, for it to end like that will be tough. But you're making sense. You're making sense. The Ravens got to do something, sweeten the pot, sweeten the deal. something's going on. You mentioned it. They're shopping. They're looking. Nobody's biting yet. Hopefully that changes. But, man, they're certainly running out of time. Well, we are also running out of time. That's going to do it for us here at the Raven Squad Show. Excuse me. Well, we are going to get ready for another show on Wednesday. So you get a quick day without us. And then we're right back here on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. talking Ravens versus Bears. Getting ready for that sweet matchup. And then we'll have the post-game show on Sunday, hopefully after a Ravens victory led by one Lamar Jackson. That's going to do us for us here at the Raven Squad Show. For myself, Kevin Ostrucker, Kadri Ismail, we appreciate you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you on Wednesday.